The United Secretary General and the African Union have also added their voices. Yesterday, the regional bloc said it would convene an emergency summit based on allegations that the country's President Roch Kabore had reportedly resigned under what is perceived to be a threat, intimidation and pressure from the military. To unpack these developments, we're joined by Dr Emmanuel Matambo, an international affairs researcher at the University of Johannesburg. A very good morning and thanks for making the time.
Good morning to you, Desiree. Good morning to your audience as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Dr Matambo, what's happening in Burkina Faso?
Well, what has been happening in Burkina Faso is actually a culmination of events that have been obtaining for quite some time now, since 2015. Unfortunately, that coincided with the time when President Roch Kabore came into power, because that the country saw the rise of Islamic extremism in the country. That is why, as a matter of urgency, the president had even appointed himself as the Minister of Defense. Unfortunately, though, the government of President Kabore has proved to be very ineffective. And matters came to a head last year in November when about 53 members of the security forces were killed in Inata, in some province in the northern part of Burkina Faso. And the main complaint that the soldiers had was that they did not receive any meaningful logistical support from the government. So there has been a building of events against the president. They have been caused by ordinary citizens for him to step down because the citizens did not feel very secure under his leadership. So this is something that should have been foreseen, as Michelle Bachelet actually warned the government last year in November. She said the security system was getting out of hand, and the president's stay at the top of the government was really under threat for some time.
But really, what led us up to this stage where we're now talking about coups?
Well, what has been happening in that part of Africa could actually partly be traced back to the 2011 ouster of Muammar Gaddafi as president of Libya. Obviously, Nigeria has been under Boko Haram since the early 2000s, but the removal of Gaddafi from Libya made that region to be very porous. There has been a very easy exchange and transportation of small arms, especially across borders, and that has been accompanied by insurgent groups through Libya, Chad, Mali, and now we have seen Burkina Faso. Ivory Coast too has been under some security duress. So we should expect that if the governments in that region do not stem the tide of jihadi extremism, then we will see more citizens actually drifting towards preferring security governance. And that is because they would feel more secure under a military government when fighting extremism rather than under a civilian government, as has been the case in Burkina Faso since 2015.
How much is known about what came out of that emergency meeting that was convened by ECOWAS focusing on Burkina Faso?
Well, for now, ECOWAS has just stressed that the Burkinabe junta, the one that has taken over government, now discloses the president's whereabouts. That is the first thing, because what has been happening about the president offering to resign, obviously did so under extreme duress. So what has been happening now is that ECOWAS will continue to just put more pressure on the Burkinabe government, ultimately obviously to return to civilian government, but for now to be accountable about the whereabouts of the president. So the details will emerge in the near future, obviously, because right now we are all still in limbo about the whereabouts of the president and how Burkina Faso will move on from here to maybe ideally a return to civilian government.
Let's now turn our attention to Mali. Denmark says its troops have been deployed to Mali as part of a French-led counter-terrorism task force. How concerned should we be regarding political stability in West Africa?
Well, actually, yesterday, the current leadership in Mali has actually come out strongly to say Denmark should withdraw its army, its personnel from the country. So we see in here a military that wants to pose itself as though it can effectively stem the tide of insecurity in that particular country. And we have seen that now with what has happened in Burkina Faso, West Africa will now be led to some extent under this clique of the military. I mean, it started Mali being one of the countries, Guinea offering Mali some political support under duress from ECOWAS, and of course Burkina Faso at the moment. So in order for these military leaderships to justify why they gained power in the first place, they want to show the citizens that they can actually go it alone against Islamic extremism. And one of the benchmarks for doing that is to make sure that they reduce French collaboration and French involvement and participation in the struggle against jihadism. So that is what the Malian government wants to prove or to convince to the other observers, especially those who might not be very much in tandem with what the Malian government has done.
It's still curious, though, why Denmark would send troops to Mali. Your thoughts about this? The importance of Mali?
Well, that is not a new. That is not actually a new thing. It has been happening a lot because the French have obviously had a very telling impact and involvement in West Africa, and Denmark is just bandwagoning on what the French what the French have been doing. So the most important factor is actually the French, and the French will conscript Denmark because obviously those who come under the Denmark understand, the Danish understands exactly how much influence and interest that the French have in that region. So Denmark is just bandwagoning on that, and that should not be taken as a surprise. Once the French have been removed or their power has been reduced, their influence has been reduced in that region, then we will see that even smaller powers that come on the coattails of the French will also diminish their presence in that region.
Dr. Matambo, thank you so much for giving us some insight into the story. I do want to say, though, that you were referring to Islamic militants during our conversation, and the SABC has taken a stance to call militants by their names and not necessarily Islamic militants. But thank you so much for the time.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Steve.
And that's